What a conference championship weekend, and what a finish to these games. Really starting with that SEC championship game that went to overtime. Penn State, Oregon came down pretty much to the wire, came down to the final 2 minutes, and then the Clemson SMU game, that might have been the best game of them all. What a comeback by SMU. So I'm going to give you what I believe the rankings will look like tomorrow. I'll show you the top 25, and then I will show you the playoff bracket based off of these rankings. Again, my projection as to what it's going to look like tomorrow. I plan on doing a reaction video tomorrow once those rankings come out, and I might actually do a live video. We might do like an hour live show when those rankings come out, but I will have something up tomorrow. I may even do the live show as the rankings come out, so you might see a live reaction to those rankings. So stay tuned for that tomorrow, but for tonight, we are going to, again, give you the final projections here. The big question is going to be, what does the committee do with these teams that lose conference championship games? How far do they fall? Do they fall at all? Of course, SMU, Alabama. That's going to be a big debate as far as who that final team is to make it in. And we have not seen how the committee is going to treat these teams in these games with the 12-team playoff. So we really don't know. There is no precedent. So I'm just going to give it my best guess based off of all of the things that they have told us. And of course, the committee has gone back and forth on this topic. They say they won't penalize a team for playing in a conference championship game. But then they said SMU could possibly fall behind Alabama. So we really don't know. And again, this is my best guess as to what these rankings are going to look like. I do feel good about my projection for the field of 12. I do. I mean, I would be shocked. I would be shocked if it's not these 12 teams. So let's just get right into it, and we'll start at the bottom. I think UNLV does drop some. Again, they say they won't penalize teams one day, and then the next day they say, who knows? I think the 3 losses will be enough for UNLV to fall a little bit. I've got them falling number 24. Still ahead of Memphis. It's still in the top 25. And so, again, Memphis 25, UNLV 24, Colorado 23, Syracuse 22, and Illinois number 21. Again, they did say that there would be really no movement. Like the teams that don't play in conference championship games will not move ahead of teams that don't play in conference championship games. So like Illinois, Syracuse, Colorado, we know they will be in that order. All right, so how about the next 5 teams? This is what I think it's going to look like. I think Iowa State drops a little bit. I think, to me, Iowa State and BYU were very, very close. I think the committee might look at this game from Iowa State and drop them a little bit. I think Army makes a move up. Again, we don't know how much the committee is going to value these conference championship games. I think it was a bigger deal with the 14 playoff. I don't know that it matters as much in terms of the rankings with the 12-team playoff, but I think Army does get a boost, and I think they get up to number 18. And then I think Clemson's at 16. I don't think Clemson really goes any higher than that in their rankings. Of course, they're going to be in the playoff, and to me, it's clear they'll be the number 12 seed. But I don't think they really go up much more than that because it's still a team with 3 regular season losses. It's still a team with, this SMU game, this SMU win, that's their best win. That's their only win over a ranked opponent. So I don't see Clemson shooting up these rankings. They lost head-to-head to South Carolina. I don't think they jump ahead of them. And I think they wind up at 16, but it really doesn't matter because regardless, they're going to be that 12 seed unless they were to jump all the way ahead of, say, Arizona State or ahead of SMU, and I do not see that happening. So we'll go ahead and give you that one. I think Clemson will be the 12 seed. All right, so now the drama. Now it's all about who comes in at number 11. Which team will get that final at-large spot, and I believe it will be SMU. I believe SMU will be in. The comeback that they just put together after a terrible start, but they come back and really look like the better team for most of that game against Clemson. I don't think they get penalized much. I do think they maybe drop behind Boise State, potentially Arizona State, and potentially Indiana. And I think when I was doing this in my head, I think I had Arizona State at number 11 and SMU at 10. But that won't matter for the playoff bracket. So I could see that going either way. And I could even see SMU still being ahead of Indiana. I think that's possible. Again, we don't know what the committee is going to do with these conference championship game losers. But I do think Arizona State will shoot up past Miami. I think we will. That was a very impressive win against a top 20 team. So I do think Arizona State will be up in these rankings ahead of Miami and potentially ahead of SMU. It's just a matter of, how far SMU drops from that loss. I do think they will drop a little bit, but I don't think they'll drop out. So we've got South Carolina at 15, Ole Miss 14, Alabama 13, Miami 12, and SMU at number 11. So yes, I do have Arizona State jumping up either to 10 or 11. It doesn't matter because they still will get a first round bye. But we're going to go with 10 here. Again, that one was really close for me. Boise State at 9. Could Boise State possibly jump ahead of Indiana? That really doesn't matter because Boise State's going to have their spot in the playoff. I think Indiana 11-1. Again, does SMU stay where they were? Do they stay at 8 and none of these teams jump ahead of them? I don't know. I think Boise State for sure is going to jump ahead of SMU. So could we see Boise State up there at 8 and then SMU at 9 and Indiana at 10? So there's a lot of different ways this could go, this little cluster of teams here. I think Ohio State and Tennessee are pretty much locked in at 6 and 7. There was a thought that maybe Penn State could drop behind Ohio State because they have 2 losses and they have the head-to-head loss. But that game was so close, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the committee is going to penalize Penn State for playing in a conference championship game. All right, so what will the top 5 look like? I think we're going to see Notre Dame at 5, Penn State at 4, Texas at 3, Georgia at 2, and Oregon at number 1. Obviously, Georgia's the easy one. Then it comes down to, I think you have to move Georgia ahead of Texas and Penn State. But what about Notre Dame? I think Notre Dame could be at 2. I think they could be at 3. I think they could be at 5. I think they're either, right there at number 2 because they only have 1 loss, or I think they're ahead of both Texas and Penn State, or I think they're behind both Texas and Penn State because Texas and Penn State both lost really close games to really good teams. So I think Notre Dame is either ahead of both of them or behind both of them. This is how I think it's going to look, though. Again, I do not think Texas and Penn State are going to get penalized and drop behind Notre Dame for playing in conference championship games. It's important because Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, that seeding, it matters where they're ranked for the seeding. But I think this is how it's going to look like. So I would love to get your thoughts on the rankings and what you think these rankings are going to look like. But now let's get to the playoff bracket. So this is what the playoff bracket will look like based off of my projections. As you can see, Oregon, they're going to be the 1 seed. Georgia, the 2 seed. We know that. We feel like Boise State's going to be the 3 seed. And we feel like Arizona State's going to be the 4 seed. There is a thought that maybe Clemson jumps Arizona State because they beat a top 10 team, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Arizona State's there at 4. Interesting that they're, I guess, going to have to play in the Peach Bowl. I don't know how exactly that is going to work, or I don't think the Fiesta Bowl has a tie-in with the Big 12. And so I think that the 3 seed would get their preference. They would get to pick before the 4 seed. They'd get to their location. So Boise State, I assume, would get the Fiesta Bowl. Arizona State would have to go all the way to Atlanta. So yeah, that's kind of a tough location for them, but getting a first round bye obviously is huge. And so then you've got, if you go to the next ranked team, Texas, I feel pretty confident Texas will be 5 and Clemson will be 12. So it's Texas, Clemson in that matchup. That one seems pretty clear to me. Penn State 6, SMU 11. That one feels pretty clear to me unless they drop out. So if Alabama does get in and they drop Penn State all the way behind them, then I think Alabama would be at 11. But I just don't see that happening. I think that would be, honestly, I think it would be terrible if that did happen. And so then we got Notre Dame, Indiana, and we've got Ohio State, Tennessee. So these are the matchups. This could all be tweaked, by just a little bit. We could see, SMU doesn't drop behind Indiana, and SMU is at 10. Indiana's at 11. I think Ohio State and Tennessee are that is locked in. I would be very, very surprised if it's not Ohio State, Tennessee in the 8-9 matchup. That's the one I feel the best about, unless Penn State drops behind Ohio State. But I just don't see that happening. That one would surprise me. So a lot of different ways this could go in terms of seeding. But I feel very confident that SMU will be that final at-large team. Or maybe not even the final at-large team, but I feel confident that SMU will be in after that performance against Clemson and that comeback. Now, if they had not come back, if they lost by 20 points, then I think Alabama probably gets in and SMU does not. So coming back in that game was big for SMU, and I think it'll pay off with a playoff spot. So again, give me your thoughts on this. How do you think it's going to shake out with the bracket, your rankings, all that? Let me know down in the comments below.